Welcome back to another dreadful All About America's team. And we are here to break down, unfortunately, a disaster in Green Bay. I'm Ray Nickens, joined with, as always,
Owen DeChico.
and we're here to break down the Cowboys' loss to the Green Bay Packers 31-28. Before we dive right in, Owen, any breaking news, maybe an Odell signing?
I don't think so after that last game. He was waiting to really see how the playoff picture was going to play out. And Dallas is still in the playoffs. They're on the 6th seed right now, but I doubt that Odell will be coming to town. Anthony Brown, he was concussed, and last night showed that even though a lot of fans don't like him, he's probably the best we got besides Diggs. So hopefully he comes back from his concussion and is able to play, because the next two games are coming up. They're very important. So we're gonna need to be full strength. Because if Dallas, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but if Dallas can win the next two games, then they'll be looking better. But we'll get into that later today and on Friday. But besides that, injury report will probably come out later today, tomorrow, something like that. But I don't really think that there's any. Hopefully, Anthony Brown comes back. I think that loss was very apparent. So hopefully he'll be able to come back. But yeah, I think that's all we have for injuries.
Well, at least that's one positive. We didn't lose anyone to season-ending injuries, which is always good. So, but let's dive into the negatives, shall we?
Yeah.
Well, as everyone knows, the Dallas Cowboys did not finish the job versus the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers did it again. He had by far his best game of the year, throwing 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did lose a fumble, but we'll dive into a little bit more in depth. The fumble did not really accumulate to anything, but yeah. So I'll just start with you, Owen. Just kind of break down your overall thoughts of the game and just anything that stood out to you or anything that came to mind as you were watching the second slowly tick off in overtime, and Crosby was just kind of lining up to make that game-winning field goal.
I don't think that we talked about this enough, but Dallas, at least in recent years, they come out of bye weeks very slow, and that was very apparent. I honestly have no idea what Dallas does for the bye week. Obviously, they can't practice during the bye week, but I have no idea what they were doing this past week. This was supposed to be a game where Mike McCarthy knew the quarterback for years, and he knew this, and I would assume that he would have a good idea of the system, and that did not show at all. Dallas is very slow out the gate, and like the last 8 weeks, Dallas got ran over a lot. Aaron Jones had 24 carries for 138 yards and touchdown, and Dylan had 13 carries for 65 yards, and that's not a recipe for winning football, in my opinion. Dak did have 2 interceptions, but I'm not going to say that's the reason why we lost, because Dallas was up 28-14 late in the game. So obviously those 2 interceptions did not really have an impact. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, that the first one, if there's any type of hope that we have, it's that they ran the same play later in the game and CD learned from his mistake and was able to catch it. And one thing I'll always give CD is that he can always make the catch. He makes very difficult catches, like where he got hit by a safety while catching it, but then just mental errors and stuff is his downfall. I'm just going to talk about a lot of things, and then Ray, I'd like your input. The second interception, Dalton Schultz kind of seemed to be the issue for that one. Dak, I have no idea why you're throwing in the middle of the end zone where every defender is. That was not a great idea. But also when you have two white shirts on top of each other, that's a recipe for disaster. And Green Bay safety had the game of his life, or the first half of his life, basically in Ford. Um, I think the most laughable part of this is that the reason why Dallas lost was due to penalties. You had the hold on Connor McGovern, then you had Jalen Tolbert lining up off sides. And honestly, if I saw an ESPN alert where it said Jalen Tolbert was cut, I would not be surprised. He had People had a lot of hope for him, and I think that we kind of over had we had way too our expectations were way too high for the player. He was a third round pick coming out of South Alabama, and he was kind of our he we hoped that he would go into the wide receiver 2 role with Gallup being out, and Gallup isn't the same player that he was pre-injury, and I'm gonna just say that that's because of injury. I saw a few things that it usually takes a player a year or a few months to a year after their injury and after they start playing to really come back and be 100% again. But I think I'll give the reason why I think they lost, and then Ray, you can kind of take over. It's difficult to win when your defense can't get a stop. During the Cooper Rush era for Dallas, that's all the defense did was get a bunch of stops, and now apparently they can't stop a nosebleed. Um, Micah Parsons, where were you? You didn't really do all that much. I know that Skip Bayless was going insane because he was playing linebacker instead of lining up at defensive end. And you could say that that's because of Anthony or because of Barr's injury, but also I just don't. There's there were a lot of reports of just Micah not being that great up against the run, and that was apparent. That's the one way to neutralize him is to run towards him because you're not going to run the ball towards DeMarcus Lawrence because we saw how that ended yesterday. And teams are going away from him, and it's difficult when you don't have a second good rush DN because that's what they're going to do. And Dallas just, we've been saying the same thing since 2018 against the Rams game in the playoffs. Dallas cannot stop anything. Rodgers threw like 5 or 6 passes in the first half. I believe that was the number. And that if you look at the two stat sheets, Dak threw 46 times and Aaron threw 20. I expected it to be the reverse. I thought that Dak would kind of take we throw around 20 balls and then Rodgers throw 46, but I have no idea why you're asking a guy to throw the ball 46 times when you're up. I don't understand why they were throwing the ball so much when they were up by 14 points. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. CeeDee Lamb had a good game, but doesn't really mean much. I think he's top 10 in yards right now, so whoop-de-doo to you. He's right behind AJ Brown, so congratulations, CeeDee Lamb. And also the coaching staff. I did not. Dan Quinn needs to have a heart-to-heart moment with himself because that was a pitiful performance. I don't. I and just one more point before Ray takes over. The last series that Dallas had on offense, I don't understand why you would throw it on third down if you had every intention on going for it on fourth. That was kind of a dumb decision, in my opinion, especially when Tony Pollard was running the ball really well. And I think that it was right on the coaching staff to go for it because the kick was not going to go in, and I think that it showed that Mike McCarthy did not trust his defense enough to make a stop. And I think that it was very telling, all in all. And I think that this game has shades of the Broncos game from last year, and I think that teams, if they didn't know before, the way to beat Dallas is to run through them and attack the second corner because Diggs was only targeted once, and from that moment, only besides that one target, he was I didn't even know that he was out there. But Ray, any thoughts on the monologue that I just gave, or any of your own thoughts that you'd like to impart?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. A lot more thoughts have accumulated after your monologue, but I'll start with what I was thinking. Along the same lines, the Dallas Cowboys have given up 200 rushing yards in 2 games in a row, and that is a recipe for disaster. You went and traded for Jonathan Hankins from the Raiders to solve that problem. This problem is still not solved. I'm not interested in hearing about the run success when he was on the field because overall, after 2 games, they're still very very pathetic in stopping the run. I don't like. I mean, they always say like in between the trenches, it's all about like who wants it more, and the offensive line that they're going up against has consistently wanted it more in the trenches and bullied the Cowboys, and that does not look good for really anybody on the team. I know D Law did have some good plays stopping the run when they ran it at him, but he's only one guy, and you have 5 other guys stopping the run, including your guys playing linebacker, and they were able to go up and down the field. AJ Dillon had 5 yards per carry. Aaron Jones had 5.6 yards per carry on apparently a bad foot, but who knows because he looked totally healthy to me. And I mean, even Aaron Rodgers was escaping sacks and running for first down. So that's how bad it really was. And I mean, I don't really care how far the Cowboys go. If they can't stop the run, they will be gone in the first round of the playoffs because they're probably either going to be facing the Eagles or they're going to, well, maybe not the Eagles, but they're either going to be facing the Vikings or they're going to be facing the 49ers. And both teams can run the ball very well. Dalvin Cook broke away for a long run yesterday. That really kind of changed the game against the Buffalo Bills. Notice that they won and the Cowboys didn't. That, well, whatever. But yeah, so you'll be playing a lot of teams who can run the ball effectively in the next couple of weeks. You got the Giants with Saquon, you have Philly, you have the Texans who shockingly can run the ball pretty well with Pierce. The Jaguars can run it very well with ETN, and then you have Dalvin Cook, of course, and you have Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. So there's a lot of chances for the Dallas front seven to improve. But there's also a lot of chances for the Dallas Cowboys to ultimately lose if they cannot stop the run. And I don't really expect them to lose against the Texans or the Jaguars, but against the Colts, who looked a lot better shockingly yesterday than they have in weeks. Matt Ryan came back and played a very solid game. Jonathan Taylor finally got going. Um, and I mean, you have the Vikings who showed that they can win in the fourth quarter. Kirk Cousins actually played very well in the fourth quarter and was a reason why they came back, all as well as Justin Jefferson. And I mean, the blunder by Josh Allen fumbling inside his own end zone. I don't really know what happened, but I mean, like the Vikings are a different team. They're not the same team that Cooper Rush beat last year. They're not the same team that Dak beat a couple of years back. They're a lot different. They finish in fourth quarters. They've done it 2 games in a row. So I mean, it's a lot. We have to pay attention to that as we're going up into Minnesota next week, and then we got the Giants on Thanksgiving. So ultimately, once again, the Cowboys they're heading towards the holiday season, which is a recipe for disaster most years. And losing today basically lost the division. I see there's zero chance that the Cowboys have of beating the Eagles for the division. They might be able to get second against the Giants because the Giants have a tough road ahead. But I mean, we're looking at second at best in the division. But they're not winning the division, so they're not going to have a home playoff game, which is kind of that one last bit of hope that we were kind of hoping for, that the Cowboys could beat Philly. Philly could slip up coming in, and then we would have a chance to maybe luck into the division. But that's kind of over now with us being 3 games down with I guess it would be 6 or 7 games to go. So, I mean, it doesn't really bode well. But just to answer, just kind of respond to some of your points. I don't think it was the Cowboys starting slow off a bye. They were up 14-0 against the Packers and had two chances to kind of end the game in the first half. The first one ended in the interception in the end zone. Like, you can blame Dalton Schultz all you want, but like you said, there were 6 Green Bay players in the vicinity, and they were all very close to the football, and it was just like a horrible. I don't know what, because even if he runs the wrong route, Dak Prescott still has 2 eyes. I would hope to where he can look down the field and see 6 Green Bay jerseys and know I should probably not throw this pass, especially on third down when you can easily just either go to your second read or throw it out of bounds and get a field goal and go up 17-0, which would be 3 scores, which is a lot more of a battle than 2, because even if Green Bay scores 14 quick points, you still have the 1 possession lead, and you can still have some cards to play with at that point. So Dak throws the interception, Green Bay gets a good return, and then Aaron Rodgers goes down the field, gets a touchdown. Next play, Dak throws the interception to CD. I'm not going to really blame Dak for that one because CD, I mean, when Michael Irvin says that CD ran the wrong route, then I'm going to take his word for it. But at the end of the day, like, the fact that we're still blaming CD for Dak's interceptions, like, it goes both ways. Like, Dak is not on the same page with his number 1 wide receiver. He hasn't been on the same page with him for 3-4 years now. It needs to, like, at some point you got to have a come to Jesus moment and be like, I'm at fault too because we're not on the same page and I'm not holding CD Lamb accountable for his mistakes. So, like, there's a problem. Like, if CD's running the wrong route in the postseason and Dak throws it to him and it's picked off by, like Fred Warner or Patrick Peterson or Harrison Smith or whoever, like, we're not going to be really worried about, CD ran the wrong route, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be, wow, the Cowboys lost in the postseason because the quarterback threw it to the other team and he's not on the same page with his wide receiver. So, I mean, in isolated, I'm not going to blame Dak for the pick, but in, like, when you take a bigger picture, it's a problem that he's still not on the same page with his wide receiver. And I don't really know why, but it needs to be fixed. And they had a bye week last week, so I would expect them to, be at worst mediocre. But, well, that's not even a good word because it was 10 for 150. But at least, not making dumb mistakes and running wrong routes and throwing on anticipation throws. So that's just kind of on that point. So I don't really think the Cowboys started slow. They just, threw the game in the first half, and they had a chance, honestly, to be up 28-0, and the game would have been over. And instead, they walked into halftime 14-all because the Green Bay scored 14 points off of the Dak 2 interceptions, and Dallas scored 0 off of the Aaron Rodgers fumble. So that's just on that point alone. First half, I didn't really, they just kind of shot themselves in the foot, and that kind of let Green Bay back into the game. The second thing that you said about it was the field goal. So Brett Maher has been very good this year at kicking field goals, and I don't understand why you thought he was going to miss, because he's given you really no reason to believe that he was going to miss that kick. He's been very good from deep. He's been consistent, has not missed an extra point. And honestly, they were well within his range to be kicking that field goal. I think they're at the 39. So it would have been a 50, 52-yard, 53-yard field goal. But in this day and age, a 53-yard field goal is not that difficult for kickers. If you're considered, a decent kicker. But, I mean, I don't understand why. I understand why they went for it, because, I mean, you don't want to give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers, but at the end of the day, you have a chance to take the lead, go up 3 points, and then kick the ball back to Aaron Rodgers and make them go the length of the field to either tie or beat you. And I would much rather, give, take the 3 points, kick the ball to Aaron Rodgers and say, look, we've had a pretty terrible day on defense, but we're still the third best defense in the league. You weren't able to really do much on when we punted it to you with 1:30 left for them to take the lead. They ended up punting it back. We still have Micah Parsons. We have Trayvon Diggs. We have Marcus Lawrence. We have Van Der Esch. We have we have a lot of these players who can make plays, and you have a depleted wide receiving core who is really carried by one person who got 4 passes for 100 yards, which really tells you all you need to know. 4 big plays, and that's basically it. He didn't have 9 for 135 or 12 for 187. It was 4 catches for 100 yards, which is easily fixable. Two blown assignments or whatever, and I would much rather have made Aaron Rodgers go the length of the field than giving him a short field and all they had to do was run it a couple times and a big pass to Lazard and then they're kicking the game-winning field goal. So that's just my point. I was furious when I saw them going for it on 4th down. I was like, what are you doing? Because the entire game, the Cowboys were terrible on 3rd and 4th down. Just to give you a little bit of hindsight of what terrible means. Prescott on 4th down was 4 of 12 for 2 interceptions, which is the worst quarter QBR since 2011, and that QBR was Tim Tebow. So that's how terrible Dak Prescott was on 3rd and 4th down, and then you're going to put the ball in his hands, 4th and 4, with the chance of giving Aaron Rodgers a short field to go down the field and ultimately win the game, and then Dak throws a prayer up to Gallup, which is incomplete. There are a ton of people crying on Twitter saying it was PI. I don't really care. I would rather them not throw the flag in that situation because it's the end of the game and one-on-one bang bang play. I'm glad I'm not glad the flag stayed in the pocket because it would have given us free 1st down. But I'm glad that the referees are not flag happy. I guess at the end of the game because come playoff time. That could easily flip on our heads come playoff time where they're throwing flags at the end of the game. So I'd rather us lose now and the flag stay in the pocket than come later on where we're getting all these, 50-50 flags and then all of a sudden later on in the season, the flags are not coming out and then we're crying on Twitter about penalties. So that's just my opinion on that. But the other thing that stuck out to me, I have no idea why you would keep Deron Bland on Christian Watson. He's I believe a 4th or 5th round selection, maybe even a 6th round selection.
Bland with a 6.
Basically, it's a late pick in your draft. He's a rookie, and you're leaving him on the guy who runs a 4.3. Can run by pretty much anybody and is 6'4". So he's got a height advantage and he can run past you. You're basically ruining this guy just because you really cannot get out of your own way and move Trayvon Diggs from Allen Lazard, who's been basically pedestrian the entire game, and you're not putting him on Christian Watson. That's the only thing I'm upset with about Dan Quinn in this game. At the end of the day, he's called 80% great game, 90% great games from his defense overall. And I'm not going to, say he needs to, look in the mirror and really have a good talking to himself about, scheming or whatever. You can say that about the run defense, but the secondary has been pretty spot on all year and even last year. But in this case, you have Trayvon Diggs, who's been playing very well, has looked a lot better in coverage. He's not, the hit or miss interception king from last year. He's actually been playing really well in coverage. Why wouldn't you just move him over to cover Christian Watson? It makes absolutely no sense to me. Diggs is a very fast corner. Even Owen, you say he does really well against big, tall corners. He does very well on them. So why wouldn't you move him over to Christian Watson? He's 6'4". They run about the same 40. Like I don't understand. And I mean Lazard, he caught 4 passes for 30 yards. He basically was a no-show all game because Rodgers would just heave it up to Christian Watson, who'd run by Bland and either catch the ball or drop it. And most of the time, he caught the ball and scored. So I don't really know why. They're just in it. They're in it in their own way. They think that their system beats all, no adjustments necessary. But come playoff time, you're gonna have to make adjustments, and this shows me that they're just unwilling to make adjustments. And if you're unwilling to make adjustments in a regular season game against a team who's lost 5 in a row and is teetering on collapse, then you're not going to make adjustments against the 49ers or the Eagles or the Vikings or any other team in the postseason that you're going to play. So at that point, just from overall, before we kind of dive in a little bit deeper, and I'll go into like specifics on, why. Well, I already explained it, but just to kind of a summary, the Cowboys lost because they couldn't stop the run. Dak Prescott was terrible on 3rd and 4th down and ultimately terrible in the 4th quarter, and they did not make adjustments on defense, and that basically led to 3 touchdowns for the Packers.
Can I respond?
I'm done.
Okay. So my rebuttal to your field goal thing, I would 100% rather have Mason Crosby over Brett Maher, just kicking wise. And at this point, any coaching staff I trust to make a better decision than Dallas's. And if Matt LaFleur decides to not kick a field goal twice or 2 times early in the game, at probably similar distance, because the field wasn't in great condition. If we're just, because personally, I would much rather go for it than have Maher like shank it into the 4th row of the stands. And it, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, basically.
But I understand the field is bad conditions, all that. But basically, at this point, you're creating a narrative on a dude who has been kicking very well the entire season, who's not been a problem. We've not cringed whenever he's come on the field to kick a field goal. He's been money, kicking it right down the middle, no extra point blunders, no nothing. And like you're like, it's basically what you're like. Your reasoning is the fear of the worst. And I mean, if you're like thinking if that's how the coach, I would hope the coaching staff is not thinking that when they're making these big decisions, because I understand going for it early on in the game, because like I said, the Packers have lost 5 straight. They're trying to get some momentum, trying to jumpstart their team, going for it in the 4th quarter, in early 1st quarter, in the opposing team's territory. I have no problem with that. When you get into the late game, where there's the margin of error is very thin, and your reasoning is our kicker could shank this ball. Like I don't like that explanation to why they didn't kick it. Like I understand like his press conference explanation of we've been pretty pedestrian. We haven't been, we're losing momentum, blah blah blah. Like that makes a lot more sense. But then when you look a little bit deeper, in my opinion, and then I'll let you speak, I'll kind of shut up for a little bit. But when your quarterback has 4 of 12 on 3rd and 4th, or 3 of 11 on 3rd and 4th down, he has 2 interceptions. He's playing terrible on those 2 downs, and you're basically saying, I trust my offense, who's been garbage on this down, to basically win the game, instead of putting it into my hands of my kicker, who's 90% for the year on field goals, in this range, basically missing 1 from 60, I think it was, and then had 1 blocked. So he's been basically perfect. And you're saying, I don't trust you because you might shank the ball, and then I would get in trouble and everyone would hate you. So we're going to put the ball in our offense's hands, who's been terrible on 4th down and 3rd down, and trust them to make 4 yards and risk it giving Aaron Rodgers a short field to ultimately win the game. So I just don't really understand that, and I have a problem with putting the narrative on Brett Maher for the past, when in the last 2 seasons he's been basically perfect from the range that he would be kicking from.
It had nothing to do with what has gone in the past. The field was in no condition to kick. Mason Crosby did not kick it twice, and the score was 0-0. If Mason Crosby is not kicking the ball, kicking a 40, 50-yarder when the score is 0-0, why would you have Brett Maher, who only this year has looked good? Why would you have him kick similar distance? Two, Aaron Rodgers, the one guy that knows the most about Aaron Rodgers is Dallas's coach. Dallas fans have seen Rodgers walk down on Dallas far too many times. The defense could not stop a nosebleed. You're going to want to end the game. So they're going to go for it. The plays that defined overtime were the botched snap by your center, which he's had a really good year besides that one idiotic play. You had your third round pick line up 40 yards offsides because why not? And then he had to say that he asked the sideline judge, but if you look back at the video, he didn't ask until the Cowboys were already in motion. So he should be he the guy's not even playing. So you just cut your losses. At least show Dallas, at least show the players that if they keep up the nonsense, stuff's gonna happen. And then 3, you had the hold on Connor McGovern. If those things don't happen, which the inevitable, then Dallas is in a position to win. But of course, Dallas likes to shoot themselves in the foot. And you had Mike McCarthy say, well, the playoffs, like the penalties, and he was screaming and yelling and all that stuff. And who really cares? If you're head coach, this whole narrative of the refs blaming everything, unless you're the Saints and you had your playoff hopes and dreams crushed because a ref decided not to call a blatant defensive pass interference, then you have no say in the refs. You understand that the refs will call back, will have so calls, but also your team is just terribly, they just far too many penalties. They're not disciplined at all. It's pretty pathetic when you need to make a play, everything crumbles. And I honestly right now I don't think that there's any real way to fix that, because if they wanted to fix it, they would have done it a while ago. You're not going to cut McCarthy right now because there's really no point in doing that, because who are you going to get to replace him? I just think that overall it was a pretty terrible performance. Dak should never throw the ball 46 times again the rest of the year. I know that we had a segment on this a few episodes ago, but that's awful. And I think the most ironic part of all of this is that Dallas played like this, but the other time they really needed to get a score at the end of the first half, it was easy for them. They were walking down it. There was no issue. They were able to just go down, and it was like a walk in the park, like they were practicing in Fort Worth. And I don't understand it. This team is extremely inconsistent, and even if Dallas wins the next 2 games, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That they could blow Minnesota out by 40 points and have 3 pick sixes for Diggs, and it would not change a thing. It doesn't change much. Odell's not coming. He wants to win. He's not coming to Dallas. It doesn't matter where he goes, but it's not going to be Dallas. This team was doomed as when one of their top 3 wide receivers tore his ACL that late in the season, and 2, when they got rid of Cooper. And you can see, and sure, he had his fair share of nonsense, and I'm not even talking about play performance, but what I am saying is that I'd rather him run around with 2 walking boots than have to see any wide receiver not named Lamb run, because Michael Gallup is a shell of himself. And I'm not even saying to give Cooper the ball, but at least have him take on Jair Alexander so that Lamb and whoever else can pick apart the second corner. This team is pathetic. And I don't. Sure, Dallas can make the playoffs, but there's no chance they're gonna win a game. Um, I unless something drastic happens in Minnesota, Kirk Cousins is dropping 350. Justin Jefferson is having a buck 50, and Dalvin Cook is running for over 100, and that is how this is gonna go. I'm gonna look forward to seeing you like that, and Kirk Cousins wearing $40 million chains, because that is what deserves to happen. Only player on this team that actually cares is Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons has been figured out, and he's a shell of himself, either because of injury or because teams realize that he's not a big guy, like weight wise, so you can run at him and be fine. And sure, Dallas could just have him as a predominant pass rusher, but then your linebacking core is a mess. And hopefully we get to see Jabril Cox play, because I'd rather see him play than, I don't know. Yeah, after this game, I was just stunned for a good 4 hours, and I'm sure Ray was as well. Ray texted me, "We're not talking about this until 11 a.m." And I was like, "I agree."
And then you went and added me on Twitter. I had to turn on the do not disturb, so I didn't get any more Twitter notifications.
I was rather sad. This was just here's like the glass half full way of looking at it, and then Ray, you can take over. So the one thing I'm looking forward to is that this game will do one of two things. It will either, one, crush Dallas's hopes and dreams for the season, and I can watch some stress-free football for the next 8 weeks, and I can actually enjoy Thanksgiving, and I can enjoy Christmas Eve. Or this will ignite some insane fire that will drive Dallas to win, which is not going to happen. So the first option is going to happen. For the first time in a while, I can enjoy Thanksgiving, because last year there was still some hope that Dallas could win against the Raiders, I believe they play, and they ended up not winning. So Dallas, thank you. This is a fantastic early Christmas present. And it's the season's over, folks. Pack it up. I don't expect things to get much better, because the Eagles are not going to lose anytime soon. The Giants are not going to lose anytime soon. The Buccaneers, if they figure it out, they're not going to lose anytime soon. We might have just found Aaron Rodgers his number one wide receiver, and they could continue to win, which means that the Packers and the Vikings are going to make the playoffs, and the Packers have the tiebreaker over Dallas. So this game was important, for one, because they would most likely knock the Packers out of playoff contention, and two, because they would set themselves up. And if they lose to the Vikings, it's over. It's over. It is. And nothing's going to change if this were to happen, but I just don't understand how you can give up 107 yards to a guy that was not all that great. And to go back to your question about Lazard and everything, and then I remembered, and then you can talk. The reason why Lazard was pedestrian, as you said, was because Trayvon Diggs was on him. If you put Diggs on Watson, then Lazard's gonna go off. So again, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Anthony Brown, I hope he comes back healthy, but right now Dallas's two needs are just I don't care if they have to go trade up for the Georgia defensive tackle. I don't care what they have to do to trade for him. Trade for that pick, do it, or draft a corner. Because this is, I've never seen a team that's so close to being good be so far away from being good. And or so good, so close to being good personnel wise, and just be awful. So yeah, MVP of the game. Have at it, Trayvon. And least valuable player, Dak. You get that crown, and the defense. You can have a co-crown. Dak. Just it pains me so much because Dak has not won a meaningful game since New England last year. And, I don't know what to say anymore. Dak, win a game, please. If if I was a betting man, I would pound the over on Dak 2.5 interceptions next week. I would pound it because it's Patrick Peterson. He looks good. Or no, sorry, wrong guy. The Vikings in general. They Harrison Smith. It's gonna be a long game. So Ray, please, will I hold back tears? It is all yours.
Well, I mean, I think this is overreaction 0 and
No, it is
2.0.
not. How is it
We
overreacting?
we
Wait, tell me,
we
how is it overreacting?
I
Okay.
will because we have seen this situation before. All we have to do is go back a couple of weeks to week 1. Yeah, the same thing. The season is over. I don't have to pay attention. The Cowboys stink. They're not going to be good. They're not making the playoffs. They're going to fire McCarthy, cut Dak, cut Zeke, cut everybody, get rid of them. They suck. They're bad. I mean, you made some good points.
I'm
But
glad. Thank you.
overall, the season is not over. The Dak is not going to throw more than 2 interceptions against the Vikings.
He's thrown 4 in the last 3 weeks.
He'll throw 1 because he's good for a turnover a game at this point. But he's not going to throw 3 interceptions against the Vikings. So we can just we're much more likely to get run off the field than Dak to throw 3 interceptions. So let's just relax there. And then I mean the whole thing on putting you can move Diggs over and then give safety help to the opposite side where it was there are ways to make adjustments without leaving a dude wide open by himself. Or if you don't want to move Diggs over, maybe bring some safety help and double Christian Watson. Like
They were trying that, but their scheme, they were doing bunch and they were moving all over the place. They had no idea what to do. Bland was I forget who, I think it was Dez. Dez was like 26. It's a lot of film to watch this week. And
you're expecting, like I said, you're expecting your 4th or 5th round rookie who has shown flashes of being a solid pick. Like I'm not gonna give up on him after one game. I'm not gonna give up on him after one game, but like you're leaving him out to dry. Basically, that's basically what the Cowboys did is they left Deron Bland out to dry and could have potentially shot his confidence for the rest of his career. And instead of trying to provide any sort of solution. I mean, Dan Quinn's not a dummy. He's been a defensive coordinator since his Seattle days. He knows how to make an adjustment against bunch, I would hope. And if he doesn't, then why is he a defensive coordinator? Because you should know how to make an adjustment against every personnel that a team throws at you. Especially the Packers, who were able to produce 9 points against the Detroit Lions, and they just put up 31 on you. And Aaron Rodgers, after throwing 3 interceptions, threw no interceptions against a much better defense with much fewer weapons. So that's on the defenses. That's on the coordinator for not making adjustments, and it's on the players first because they're the ones who laid the egg. And then at second, it's on the coach for not being able to make a quality adjustment. And then after that, you mentioned Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is not a shell of himself. He's played great in every game he's played except for yesterday. I'm not. He did get hurt. He's been. They said he had a groin issue a couple weeks back. It didn't really, and then all of a sudden he's limping. He had one bad game. Like
Yeah,
let's not say teams have figured him out. He's a shell of himself. He's not good. He had one bad game. Let's put in isolation and move on. He's had 30 other great games in his career.
You told me that if a player is hurt and they go out there, then they should be able to play. You told me that about Dak all the time. You told me that about Zeke. So you can't use that. And
I just said he's a bad game. He had a bad game. He's had one bad game in 30 games he's played. I don't know if he was. I don't know the severity of his injury. I'm not going to blame his injury. All I know is they said Micah Parsons is limping, and then all of a sudden they said Micah Parsons is back on the field. I don't know the severity.
He got stepped on. His foot got stepped on.
Okay, so his foot got stepped on. That's not necessarily a reason for an injury concern. Like I got my foot stepped on in intramural football by cleats. Like I'm not gonna say it's the same thing, but foots are very easily stepped on in the trenches. So
all that I was talking about was that he was very injured going into the bye week, and all I was saying was that he played an insane amount of linebacker this past week, and I could only imagine that was because that was their way of, you said adjustments. Their adjustments, in my opinion at least, was probably moving him to linebacker because he was getting eaten up in run blocking. And then I also would like to go back after this to your statement about this season not being over, because I'm not even trying to be negative. I don't see if they lose next week how there's a chance of them making the playoffs with every other team on the rise and Dallas giving Aaron Rodgers his new wide receiver one. Because the Giants are going to keep on winning. The Eagles are going to keep on winning. The Packers, I haven't even looked at their schedule, and I could imagine that they're probably going to keep on winning. Minnesota is going to continue to win. So those are two wild card spots right there, in the East and in the Packers division. Then you need one other team. And like you and I know, going back to several years ago when Dallas played a practice squad Philly team to make the playoffs and they lost, I don't really have much faith in Dallas needs to win this game. I just don't. So that is all that I wish. It's not me being negative and overreacting. Sure, week one, sure, but unless they're gonna, the only way that Cooper Rush would never throw the ball 46 times. If they want to throw Cooper Rush in there and give him like 15, 20 balls to throw, by all means. But Dak is not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Aaron Rodgers. And even Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 20 times. Matt LaFleur knew. But you can continue.
Thank you. Look, if you want to say the season's over because you have no faith in them to win a playoff game, sure, we can join forces and throw up our white flag in that regard. Fine, because I don't trust them to win a playoff game either. But if you look at their schedule, they have the Jaguars, who are terrible. They have the Texans, who have won one game. So that's 2 wins right there. They're at 6-3. They have a 2-game lead on the Packers. They have a multiple game lead on the 49ers, who are a 6-5. They have a 2-game lead on them. They have a 2-game lead on a lot of teams that we expect to make the postseason. I expect the 49ers to make the postseason because of how great their roster is and how great their coaching staff is and how great Christian McCaffrey is, and honestly how good Jimmy Garoppolo has looked. Because he made a throw yesterday on the run that I did not think he could make, because it was very, he rolled out to his right and threw a nice lob pass to, I forget his name. It might have even been Ayuk, but it was over the shoulder pass in stride for a 30, 40-yard gain. I was like, wow, that was amazing. But I mean, they have so many weapons on that team to where Jimmy Garoppolo, with how inept you might want to call him, he's still made an NFC Championship game. He's won an NFC Championship game. He had a 10-point lead on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So he can win games in the postseason where Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins or whoever you want to throw in there who has not shown that they can win a lot of playoff games. Like Jimmy Garoppolo. And people are gonna. This is a hot. I don't want to say this because this is a hot take, but it's really not that hot. I would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo as my quarterback in the postseason than I would have, Dak or Kirk Cousins or Jalen Hurts, because he's shown that he can win playoff games. That's just as simple as that. The Rams are not making the postseason. Cardinals are not making the postseason. Like, really, the Cowboys, the Vikings and the Eagles are going to be on the top of the NFC when it comes to the seeding. Really, the Cowboys are fighting the 49ers, and I mean there are seven playoff spots, right? 7 playoff spots. That's a lot of playoff spots. The Cowboys are sitting at 6-3. Basically, my thoughts are they're going to beat the Texans and they're going to beat the Jaguars and they're going to beat the Washington football team. So right there, that gives them 9 wins. If they go 500 the rest of the way, they're sitting at around 11 wins, and that's going to be good enough to at least make the playoffs. 11-6, they're not going to miss the playoffs at 11-6. So I don't think they're missing the playoffs. Even if they lose to the Vikings, like you said, and we can have a pity party and cry about it. Like, the Giants are not that good. Their wide receiving core is worse than the Packers was. They just traded Kadarius Toney. They still have Kenny Golladay, who looked terrible yesterday. Like their entire offense is Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones not turning the ball over, which has been a recipe for success so far. But Cooper Rush was able to beat the Giants. Hopefully, Dak Prescott can do what Cooper Rush can and beat the Giants, which I think he can.
With the way this defense is going, run D, I'm
Well,
not even basing it off
if you
of
think about
Dak.
it, Saquon had a great game against us early on in week 4. We still won. We were still able to win. The difference is the Cowboys don't win when they play solid quarterbacks when they're running the football, when they run the football well. Like if the Packers run the football well, they have Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to get it done in crunch time. Like it's as simple as that. And then when you play the Giants, you got Saquon Barkley, and then you got Daniel Jones, who has a bunch of bums at playing wide receiver, and he's not Aaron Rodgers. So, I think that they can win that game. So that's 4. So I think, shockingly, I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win on Thanksgiving. Typically do not do that, but this is one of those games where I think they have a chance to win on Thanksgiving. So that gives them 4 wins. That'll put them at 10 wins. Even I think 10 wins is good enough to make the postseason. After that, all bets are off. They're done They're done in the wild card, but they're going to make the postseason. And I really think it's a little bit like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. We're not going to be watching the other teams. We're going to see the Cowboys at least once in the playoffs. We're going to see them lose. We're going to say, oh, we expected that. Not that big of a deal. Hopefully they fire Mike McCarthy and get someone else in it to coach them. But after that, I think they're fine. But I want to address something about Dak that's really that I've been thinking about, and I tweeted about it also, and you brought it up a little bit as well. Dak Prescott has shown over his career that when he faces a quality quarterback, 9 times out of 10, the Cowboys are losing. And that is a huge problem. If I know Owen, you've been you had high expectations for Dak. You've said this team, Dak Prescott is good enough to win the Super Bowl with the Cowboys. You've said that, you have said that multiple times. You've said he's a great quarterback. You've said at one point you said he was a better quarterback than Brady. You've put him in the top 5. You've said top 5 quarterbacks do not lose every time they go up against another top 5 quarterback. It's just not, that doesn't happen. mean, he's beaten the last time he's beaten a top five worthy quarterback was in week 2, I think, against the Chargers last season, which is a long time ago. And before that, I mean, he's beat Rodgers in the regular season, but when in big time he's lost twice in the postseason. He's dropped some to Tom Brady twice. He's lost Tom Brady twice.
Lost to Mahomes.
Lost to Mahomes, and that was a very winnable game. And I mean,
lost Derek Carr. If you view him in the top 10, if you view him as like decent,
Derek Carr is I'm done with Derek Carr. I will never talk about Derek Carr as a quality quarterback again. He lost to the Jeff Saturday Colts, and I don't really care for Derek Carr anymore.
Lost to
the only quarterback that I would expect to lose to the Jeff Saturday Colts in his coaching debut is honestly Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, because the Cowboys would be the team to lose to the Jeff Saturday Colts. And honestly,
they probably will.
My roommate Matt, big Oakland fan, he told me yesterday, I feel your pain. We are both tragic, fraudulent franchise. And I'm like, you know what? The Raiders and the Cowboys are very similar because they do very similar things and lose games that you think that they should not lose. The difference is the Cowboys are good enough to win most of their games, but then they drop the ones that you least expect them to drop, and then they drop the ones that you expect them to drop. So, I mean, I guess the silver lining to all of this is that Cooper Rush was able to win early on, because if he had dropped to the Rams and the Bengals, we'd be sitting here and be like, yeah, they're done. They're 500. They're done. They're not making the playoffs. But they were able to win. Guess who it was? 4 in a row. They won 4 in a row with Cooper Rush, and that really kind of saved their season, because if they had not won those games, they would have been done. But just going back to the whole Dak thing, the Cowboys are not going to go anywhere until Dak Prescott starts winning big-time games, because he hasn't done that in a very long time. And
would you consider next week to be a big-time game?
I absolutely. Next week is a big-time game. The last time he played Kirk Cousins last time he played Kirk Cousins on the road, he lost. So that
was 2019, right?
Right.
For the freshman year.
Yes, Kirk Cousins he's looked a lot like Kirk Cousins has always had good, solid numbers. If you look at Kirk Cousins' numbers over his entirety of his career, you'd say that's a solid quarterback. But people have trashed on Kirk Cousins because of his Monday Night Football record, rightfully so. But he looks like a very different Kirk Cousins this year than he did even last year. Like, the Kirk Cousins last year would not have beaten the Bills, probably would have dropped the game. I think it was against the football team, I believe, where they were down by 10 points in the fourth quarter and they came back and won by 7. So, I mean, next week is a big game. I'm not going to say Kirk Cousins is an elite quarterback, so I expect Dak Prescott to outplay him. Daniel Jones is not elite. I expect Dak Prescott to outplay him. So I think the Cowboys should at least get out of these next 2 weeks 1-1. That'll put him at 7-4, which is with the Texans and the Jaguars coming up. That gives you 2 quick wins. You're at 9-4. From there, you can coast into 11-6, and hopefully get the 6th seed and not the 7th seed. So
the only good quarterbacks they're going up against, like good as in like talked about a lot, are Kirk and then Hurts. I mean, you can say that going up against the Jags, you're going up against a good quarterback that has potential, but those 2 games, it depends on, for whatever reason, if the Eagles drop a few games, like if they can lose tonight, I'd be ecstatic.
Which they
or
will.
If I think that it would be, what I think will happen, just based off of how football works, the Eagles will drop a few games, and it will be first place for Eagles Cowboys on Christmas Eve, and then we can watch. I I have a feeling that could very well happen, and then we can see from a few years ago that Dallas history tends to repeat itself, and I think that it would be very poetic for Dallas to have a chance to take the division. Because looking at the division, like looking at the playoff teams, the
Wait,
Eagles can run
really quickly, did I change your mind
for what?
on them? Because you said that they were dropping the Vikings game and the Giants game.
I
This is
no,
so like
I'm just saying I'm saying like what I think will happen, like how I what I would want to happen, and like because it would be very poetic for Dallas to have a chance to win in December and lose like that would make Stephen A. Smith go insane. It would be very poetic all around. What I think will happen, and what I'm putting them at two different things. I do think that Dallas will have a tough game going up against Kirk and Dalvin. But no, I put them as two different things. Um, but I think that it would be very interesting if Dallas went into Christmas Eve with a chance to. Yeah, and if you look at the playoff seeding, the Eagles can run the ball, the Vikings can run the ball, the Seahawks can run the ball. The only team in the playoffs right now that cannot run the ball on the NFC are the Buccaneers, and I expect them to figure it out rather quickly. So Dallas, it's not looking too good because Kenneth Walker, as of right now, Dallas would play the Seattle Seahawks, and Kenneth Walker would have a field day.
the Cowboys will not lose to if the Cowboys play the Seattle Seahawks, they will not lose that game.
I I,
I'm
I
sorry. I'm sorry. Like Geno Smith has had a great season, and he's re he's brought his career back from the dead. But I do not trust Geno Smith in a playoff game. Like I will hammer the Cow. That is the only matchup that I will hammer the Cowboys
You also don't
because
trust Dak in the playoffs.
I trust Dak Prescott a lot more than I trust Geno Smith. So
When's the last time Gino was in a
if
playoff game?
he's never been in a playoff game.
Okay.
He
I
is
would
he's basically been a backup quarterback.
yeah.
His career was over, and he's reinvigorated himself. Kudos to him. He's had a great year. People are throwing him in the MVP conversation, but I don't really understand that. The Seahawks, the Seahawks could even falter down the stretch and not even make the playoffs. But worst case, I guess the best case scenario for the Cowboys if they were to draw the Seattle Seahawks because we have no idea what Geno's going to do in his playoff game. Pete Carroll's going to rely on the running game. The Bucks, who struggled against the run the last couple of weeks, they were able to limit him to 19 yards, which was a very good sign. So, yeah, I would. I mean, I'm pretty much my opinion on Dak Prescott hasn't changed for the last 2-3 seasons. So I don't expect much of him. I think that there are better quarterbacks for Dallas coming up in the draft. Unfortunately, they're not going to have a chance to get them because Dak is good enough to keep them above mediocrity or around mediocrity. But it's shameful that the Dallas Cowboys have had their best defense since the 90s, and we're here talking about that they're going to be first round exits. And the reasoning
didn't look like it
is,
last night.
like I said, one game.
They didn't.
Every other game other than a couple the last 2 years, they've been top D. They force turnovers. They get after the quarterback. They wreak havoc. All that fun, great stuff.
There's a difference
every
statistically.
Defense. I mean, are you gonna say that their defense is bad?
No, what I'm saying is that
I can pull up statistics of the Cowboys defense 2010, 2011, 2013, 20
I'm not saying that
2020. Like we
all
can
that I'm saying is that Dallas can have a great defense by all means, sure, and they could have this like greatly ranked defense, but I'm not fearing this team running the ball. I'm gonna not throw the ball to Diggs, and I'm gonna run the ball. If you do those two things, it is quite easy to win this game, to beat this team.
You know why it's easy
and
to
Dalvin
beat this
Cook,
team, though?
I'm talking specifically on
because
defense.
right.
It
But
is easy to beat this defense. Why is it easy to beat this
the
defense?
reason why it's easy to beat the Cowboys is because one, you can do those things. Two, you you feel good about yourself with the ball in Dak Prescott's hands in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter being down or having a chance to go win. The other team feels very good about it because Dak has shown a lot that he can't do that in big time games.
If
It's
we're
that
going
simple.
based off yesterday, I would have liked to see Dak go on where the offense did not have two very impactful penalties and a botch snap. The botch snap is fine, whatever you want, but yes, Dak did not elevate the team enough. But the two penalties, I'm not. This can sound like an excuse, whatever, but it did happen. The two penalties
The, the
they
two
ruined that. They
penalties,
ruined that
yes.
drive.
And I don't know why Jalen Tolbert was on the field.
I don't know either, but it
If,
ruined.
if Mike McCarthy can come up with a great explanation as to why he was on the field, sure, but there is no reason why your rookie third round pick, who has done nothing to show that he should even get playing time, has been a scratch for most of the year, that he's on the field in a crunch time situation. I don't understand that. But
And
I mainly mean when the Packers scored their two touchdown drives to tie the game, the Cowboys basically their last 5 drives of the game were punt, 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 punt. That's on your quarterback. If you can't find any like you're being paid, like I've used this excuse so many times and you're not going to like it, but he's getting
no,
paid $100+ million to basically go 3 and out 5 straight times and not do anything.
it also
So
helps when you run the ball when you're up 14 because they didn't run the ball much when they were up 14, and that is a recipe for losing football. It doesn't matter if it's Aaron Rodgers. If you throw the ball significantly more than you run the ball in when you're up by 14 points. Remember in 2016, those it was just fantastic
I
7
remember,
to 10 yard plays,
I remember,
8 to 10 minute off the clock. That
yeah,
is what they needed yesterday,
Dak
but they
Prescott
didn't.
can Dak Prescott could recline in his chair on the beach,
Yeah,
sip his whatever beer he chooses
but
as
they
Zeke
couldn't do
runs
that.
down the field and does his feed Zeke first down over and over and over again. But going back to what I said a couple weeks ago, this team is pass happy, and they did it again yesterday. They got pass happy. They
But
thought
they
that they could
haven't been before, so I don't
ex-
understand what happened. They hadn't
because
been before this game. So I don't know if Kellen Moore decided to like outsmart himself, but I don't.
because he said I have Dak Prescott, I have CeeDee Lamb, I have Dalton Schultz. I can throw the ball on this team, and Dak Prescott was basically 50% completion in this game. So, um,
I don't get it.
but yeah, I mean, the last thing I'm going to say, and we can ponder on it for a week, or you can respond. Um, I have zero. I mean, we all know that I'm a big Tony fan, and I have this nice football right here to prove that I'm a Tony fan. Big Tony fan. I got a picture of him above my desk. I every time that Tony Romo went up against a solid cute quarterback, I was like, we have a chance to win because we have Tony Romo. And sometimes I was proven horribly wrong, and sometimes he beat the undefeated Colts, beat the undefeated Saints, walked into Seattle where nobody could beat Seattle in 2014 and beat Seattle.
That Terrence Williams was so good
All of
that game.
all of 2014, people don't realize this. Most of those games, the Cowboys were one-score games, and Romo got the ball and went down the field and won the game in a late fourth quarter drive. Romo was a king at fourth quarter drives because they were always losing. Defense was so bad, but we see here we're in the Dak Prescott era, and Dak gets the ball, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Here comes another 3 and out and a punt, and then we're gonna give Aaron Rodgers the back. He's gonna go down the field and score. So I have zero faith in Dak Prescott in those situations, and I had all the faith in the world in the Tony Romo Cowboys to get it done, and I have zero faith in the Dak Prescott and the CD Lamb, who is still in I guess, the limbo in between wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Like he's
And
still
trending more
hovering.
towards 2.
He's still in the hovering in limbo. And I don't really know what to do about that. But I mean, at least Tony Pollard is showing that he can run the ball well. My fantasy football team aspirations of Zeke being a solid contributor are gone because he's not going to be the lead back. If
He is.
if they're smart, they'd stick with Pollard, but they're not. So he's gonna get it back. So I guess there's some hope
He'll be
in that.
fine.
But my overall point, my last point I want to make is that I would trust I would trust the Tony Romo led Cowboys to win the game yesterday with all with 100%. If Romo got the ball with 3 minutes left and a chance to win, I was like, yeah, sign me up. We're gonna get it done. We're gonna drive down the field and score. Dak Prescott got the ball, and I mean, I tweeted on the page, this is your time to prove that you're big time and go down the field and score. But I was thinking, there's no way in heck Dak Prescott is getting a touchdown or even a field goal. And I was proven right. And I mean, you can say there were the penalties; those were a hindrance on it. But it just there was no I had no faith that they were going to score, and that's a bad sign from me. I actually think I've been pretty optimistic this year, picking the Cowboys, and all their losses have come when they've all my 3 losses have come when I picked them to win and they've lost. So I've actually been pretty optimistic for a change in the Dak Prescott era. But
your luck, Dak's gonna have a game-winning drive next week, and we're gonna have to come here and just be like so distraught.
No, and I would be totally happy about that because every once in a while he does have a game-winning drive, like against the Patriots. Yet again, they were playing against Mac Jones, and that was a weird ending of that game. But every once in a while he'll do just enough to kind of be like, okay, maybe he's changing, maybe he's improving. Because me, I trolled Dak Prescott. Like even yesterday, I was calling him dink and throw to the other team Dak. But like me, like I want him to improve, right? I would hope. Like I want him to improve. I want the Cowboys to win. I want them to win a championship. I don't want to die before they win another Super Bowl. So, but when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking there's no way in heck they're going to win this game and drive down the field, that's an issue. And I'm reminiscing on the days where it was like a 70-30 chance that Romo was going to drive down the field, and he was either going to throw an interception 30% of the time, or he was going to hit Dwayne Harris or Laurent Robinson or Miles Austin or Des Bryant, Terrence Williams, whoever, Jason Witten, all those random wide receivers that he's had over his career, and they're going to somehow escape. And then, it's going to be the Romo coaster. Dallas wins 3 in a row, and then Dallas blows the game against Matt Flynn, and because there are a lot of reasons why they blew that game. But yeah, so. Final point, I trust Tony Romo led Cowboys to win that game, and I have no faith in the Dak Prescott led Cowboys to win the game. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I don't like Mike McCarthy. I will never believe in Mike McCarthy, and I hope that Jerry Jones wakes up and says, I don't need this guy. I can lose without him as much as I can lose with him, and cuts bait at the end of the year.
I just don't know who you'd replace him with.
Dan Quinn.
Yeah, but Dan Quinn,
Dan Quinn, and then reevaluate at the end of the season.
Yeah, but I don't think that.
I mean, let's put it this way: Jeff Saturday won his first interim head coach start.
Most interim coaches win. You had Rich Bisaccia from the Raiders; he won. You had
Why don't you hire him? I thought he turned around the Raiders for a little bit. Like the Raiders,
he used to be on the Cowboys, and then he left when what's his face left, their old defensive coordinator. What's his name?
Marinelli.
Yeah, when he went there, and then Bisaccia left with him.
Is he?
Bisaccia is the special teams coach for the Packers.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
They had a
So
special teams blunder. I don't know if you
they
caught
did.
that.
I did.
That was the play that I thought the game was over and the Cowboys were going to win because I was wrong. The Cowboys did get 7 points off of a turnover. That put the game back up to 14 points, and I thought the game was over and I could relax, but I could not relax, and I was dead wrong. But that's all I have to say. You can wrap it up or say your last closing thoughts, and then we can reconvene on Friday for a preview.
Yeah. You said that right. In conclusion, we will be taking tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday to grieve, kind of take in this loss. Here's some more press conferences about how the refs lost the game and how X, Y, and Z. Um, I don't expect Zeke to play this game. Actually, no, I do not. I do not expect Zeke to play this game or on Friday, just because we have we have a game on Thursday and then short rest and all that stuff. So I doubt that he would play back to backs from the Vikings to the Giants. But thank you all for listening. This was I haven't been this like distraught or upset about a loss since probably I wouldn't even say the 49ers game because I was on a plane for like half of that, so I wasn't really able to be upset through that. Definitely the QB draw on Dak that was pretty painful. Just that one specific play, and then the two Green Bay Packers losses, and the LA Rams. So this game was pretty upsetting at least I thought it was. But thank you everyone for listening and tuning in, and Ray and I are very pleased and happy that it only took us like 40-ish episodes to commit to a schedule, and we're here, and we're just thankful for everyone, and especially Mario for last week coming on, and we're very sad that episode had to end in a loss.
I don't want to. This is a joke. So, the 2 weeks we've had a guest, the Cowboys have lost. So, just a friendly giggle. It's not our fault, Owen. It's not our fault. Continue.
It's not our fault at all. But I hope y'all have a good rest of your week, and we will be back on Friday to talk about the Minnesota Vikings.
Let's go, Captain Kirk.
Oh no, Second Cousins. Second Cousins. His name is Second Cousins.
You can't be second.
It's
cousins
Second Cousins
when you're beating Josh Allen. I'm sorry.
If I could throw up like a basic like 20-yard Hail Mary and Justin Jefferson come down with one hand, but we'll talk about that later. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys. Captain Kirk versus Dak Prescott. I'm excited.